Good morning, it's Monday again. Time to get on with this Defender, I suppose. We've got a few days. At the moment, we haven't got any other jobs, so I'm going to try and get as much of this done as I can this week. Nothing to really report, other than, sorry, last week's video was late. I had issues with the software, editing software, but we got there in the end. And the Jag got a new identity this week. I'll put a picture in. So that's a nice cheapy plate. Didn't cost very much money at all, but just, you know, makes people smile. I've seen a lot of people smile when they see it. So right, let's crack on. Let's get some music on the go, get the kettle on, and then we will crack on. Right, so we've moved on to the mud flaps. Now, with the wide tyres, let me show you. The mud card doesn't really feel them. Now, my thought was to move them out and sort of start them over here so it covered the whole tyre. The only issue with that is you have a bit hanging out the side, past the bodywork. And if I did it on this side, the exhaust wouldn't clear. So I'm going back with where they're not quite covering it. But they've not done me too bad so far. The other thing I have noticed is the crush tubes for a rear step, or in this case my roll cage, that go in there and then lift up like that and go into these holes. I can't use on this because Maer have already welded in a cross piece to strengthen it, so you can't crush the cross member, which is handy. Yeah, I don't know if I prefer these or that, but I suppose at least you haven't got to try and line everything up and get it in there and whatever have you. So we'll keep these on the shelf in case we need them for the other Defender. Right, next. Right, so I've got the tank supporting or protector, and the tank is resting in. I'm guessing that's how the pipes go because they don't go any other way. And hopefully it's on the driver's side, I'm sure it is. Well, it has to be really, because the exit for the fuel pipes is that way. So this is obviously a Puma tank, so I've got to take the Puma pump out and put a Defender TD5 one in. But as far as I can see, they're the same tank, so fingers crossed. Anyway, right, rear axle I suppose is next. Right, there we go, the rear axle is off complete. That's now an axle stand, so I can now bring this back over and wheel the axle underneath, and then we've got to roll everything back and make a start on the front. The new one is fitted with its all rear end, the axle's on, the exhaust's on, tanks in, bump stops, etc. All done. So now we've got to move on to removing the front axle off the old chassis to be able to move it across onto the new one. So I'm going to leave the engine on the frame until the axle's mounted, and then I'll swap them over. So let's get cracking. What we've got to do is the shock mounts top and then the 4 around the bottom. Lift that out the way. We've got to undo the panhard rod, the track rod. That can all come off. And then obviously the same as the rear axle, the 30mm radius arm bolts. And then obviously the brake lines. And anything else we find. So, right, let's get cracking. Right, engine's off that chassis now, so it's almost ready. I've just got to take off the steering box and the bump stops, and then move them bits over, and then we can finish putting the front axle back together without the springs, obviously. And then once the bolts turn up for the engine mounts, because I'm missing a few, see, I've only got a couple on each side. I don't know if I really want to rest the engine on it just yet, but we'll see. They might be all right, just in situ, and then when the new bolts turn up, I can fit them all in. But right, let's get cracking. Right, so we've got the engine mounts on, we've got the steering box on, we've got the panhard rod and track rod all connected. Yes, I know they're all dirty, but they're going to get dirty as soon as it goes out, so I couldn't be bothered to clean them. The only issue I do have, well, there's two issues actually. First of all, obviously because I'm running Disco 2 rear spring hangers on the front, I don't have the brake pipe holders, so I've got to sort something from there. And obviously the next thing I've got to overcome is, because it's the airbags, it doesn't have the holes in the top for the turret to mount, or the shock mount. Now obviously the shock on the front comes straight through the middle and bolts at the top, but you can get a second mount kit that bolts to this and hangs the shock over here and bolts the front of the axle. So my plan was to use one of those, but because I haven't got these holes in the chassis, and the ones I do have is to secure the airbag in place, I've got to rethink that. Whether we can make a bracket to come off the steering box holes both sides, maybe. But right, that's a job for another day. It's more of a case of I can chuck springs in there for now, not have to worry. But I will have to sort something out, obviously, before it goes out. Really, I'd ideally like to get it done while it's in situ, but worst case, we can bolt springs in and away we go. We can obviously put the rears in without a problem, because the shocks are outboard mounted, so we can run air straight on the back without a problem. To be fair, to get it in the garage, that might even be enough, just to get the back down, enough to get in the garage, but we'll see. I'd like to have air all round, really, so that's why I had these, so I've got the facility too. So right, next is to mount the engine, I suppose, but I don't know if I'm going to do that today, because obviously I'm waiting for the bolts to turn up for the mounts. I don't know whether I really want to rest it on 2 bolts. I don't think it'd be a problem, but it would make getting the new ones in a lot easier without the engine. So as it's not far from the end of the day, we might just leave the engine and see if the postman comes tomorrow before we hit the engine and get the engine in the frame. So next job really then is to get this off axle stands and get the other dolly underneath it so I can move it out of the way. Right, I'll come back to you. Right, just going to head home now. Luckily I texted my friend Mikey, the welder, the man of all fountain of knowledge, and asked him about if we could make some outboard shock mounts instead of buying the ones that bolt obviously where I don't have room to bolt them. And he said we can easily make something that bolts on where the steering box would be on a left-hand drive, and obviously the other side of where my steering box is. So we can mount something off there that comes out obviously in line with the spring tower, and we can put a shock in there, so it shouldn't be an issue. So I'm just going to carry on and get it all put together, run the airlines, get all the bags clipped in, put some pressure in them so it can sit on the bags, and then obviously we'll go from there. So I'm going to go home now. I'm going to come back tomorrow, hopefully, with the bolts for the engine mounts, and then we can get the engine all mounted in the chassis, and then we can run things like the breather kit, the exhaust, the fuel lines, etc, etc. So I'll see you in the morning. Right, well, after a bit of fighting, we got the engine and gearbox mounted, only because I was using obviously the forklift and trying to balance the whole lot in the right angle to get the engine in was a bit awkward. So some ratchet straps we used, but we're in. We're bolted down. We've got the props on. The original one I had on there, and I found a wide angle one on front one on the shelf the other week when I was sorting out, so that's gone on. So yeah, the airbag mounting hardware has all been ordered, so hopefully that'll be the next couple of days. So now it's a matter of getting the downpipe on, I think, and then we'll start looking onto breathers and fuel pipes and bits and pieces like that. So let's look for a downpipe. downpipe is in. I did have to take off the cross member, but that wasn't bolted anyway. That was just on transport bolts. So drop the cross member, got the Discovery downpipe in. It's obviously exactly the same. Mounts up to my original exhaust system, which was 300 TDI mated to a TD5 rear box. So they're obviously the same. And we've got the cross member bolted in. So that's that job done. Next, we're going to look at fuel pipes, I think. Well, as you can see, this second-hand tank has got a bit of crap in it. I'm guessing that's water in there with a bit of diesel. So we're going to use the brake vacuum cleaner to suck it out. Oh, there you go. I've sucked most of it out. So I'll just get some blue roll in there and get out the rest of the little bits, and job's a good one. Right, well, we've had some parts turn up. First of all, we've got the spring clips that hold the airbags on. And secondly, we have these adapters. So as you can see, it's got the cutout for the airbag to sit in and twist. And these bolt down to the original spring retainer holes. So I haven't got to weld anything else onto the axle. And it gives me a 2-inch lift as well, if I need to. We've got a sticker for the sticker bonnet, which is over there. We've had for a few years now. Just never had it up on the wall. And it also comes with all the nuts and bolts as well. So, right, let's get these fitted. The only things I was waiting for now are the adapters to go from 4mm plastic tubing to 6mm, so that I can put my Schrader valves on and actually pump the bags up. But hopefully they'll be here tomorrow. So that'll be a job we can do tomorrow. Get all the airbags on today, clipped in, clipped, on the axle, bolted to the axle. And then once the adapters come, we can actually put some air on it and let it sit on its airbags. So, right, let's get these fitted. Right, so the breathers are just on with cable ties at the minute. Hopefully, well, other than the arms, hopefully I'll get some P-clips to be able to secure them to the chassis. But obviously it's got to come up the arm, because that point isn't going to change a great deal other than a bit of twist, but not a massive amount. So there's a bit of slack there just to make sure. And then it comes along the chassis. And then it joins in two places. This one comes under the arm and along this arm to the front axle. Again, not tight, with a bit of slack just so they can move. And then this one goes off and joins the axle and transfer box. Now that is what the instructions are. They don't give you fittings for the side of the transfer box or the gearbox. They tell you to join them two together. So that's all that done. The only thing I haven't got is a breather for the engine, because I bought this kit as a 300 TDI kit. Had it knocking about a while, just never fitted it. So I need to sort something out for engine breather wise and see if I need to do anything with that. But I've got plenty of pipe left over. I've got loads of fittings, well I say loads of fittings, I've got a few fittings that they've given me to do with the 300, so it might be of use. And I've also found I've got a tub for myself. So that's done. So the next job is the airline plumbing, but I haven't got the right fittings for that, because as you can see, these are only 4mm lines, whereas all the fittings I've got are for 6mm. So I've got some joiners 4mm to 6mm, so I can then probably pipe them up all together. So, right, next job. Right, well, it's on here. It's pumped up, as you saw. It goes up and down. I just need to finalise the routing once I've worked out what's going to happen. I think it's just going to be on the dash with manual paddle valve, so it's just got to come up through the bulkhead into the truck. All 4 lines, and I'm still waiting on fuel lines. So it's up now on air. I'm going to leave it on air over the weekend, and we will see if it's still up on Monday, and then hopefully we can get on with the fuel lines. But I think from a very cold Saturday morning, unfortunately, my little blue smart car is going this afternoon. Sad times, but I don't do the mileage in it that I used to. Where I used to go to different dealers around the county, moving their cars, it's gone very, very quiet. So that's just sitting around doing nothing, and I can use the Jag, to be fair. So it's going, it's a sad day. I will keep an eye out on Copart for maybe another MHD, for another paddle shift, late smart, probably a convertible this time, just for that extra campness. But for this week anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you after the weekend for the next Defender instalment. Cheers guys, ta-da.